So, AFOs are primarily used for people who can stabilize their knees in stance, but need some control at the ankles. So, that's why they're called the AFOs, ankle foot orthosis. Now, we are going to start our AFO series. It is a topic that it is a little overwhelming because there's so many types, there's so many purposes, so many things. So I'm going to try and simplify this. And if this is your first time here, my name is Lily and I'm a neuro PT and I'm a little sick. So if I have a cough attack, you know why. I have my coconut water to hydrate, but my phone keeps doing something weird. We're going to dive in. We're going to talk about solid AFOs, guys. Solid AFOs. Now, I wanted to start with the easier one. I think this is the easiest one because it's pretty straightforward. There are a few things that you need to know about solid AFOs. And I'm looking down because I have my iPad here and my pen. But the control needed at the ankle depends on the motor function present, okay, on your patient, okay? So the solid AFO is going to be a very restrictive type of AFO, okay? And you always want to start like when you're going to prescribe an AFO or you are like in the NCS exam and you're in front of a AFO question, you need to think about, okay, what is the ankle strength, right? What is the patient's sensation? Because probably they're going to, throw something at you in terms of their sensation. Obviously we're talking about proprioception. And the last one is, the spasticity. These type of AFOs, the solid AFOs, are mainly known to be either for someone with a lot of spasticity or hypertonicity, or for someone who has very severe ankle instability. Okay, so like they're rolling the ankle because of like the tone, the synergy, like inversion, etc. So solid AFOs is one type of AFO that is going to limit a lot of the ankle joint movement. Okay, so a lot of the ankle joint movement. So what does that mean by that? Let's say your patient sometimes when they had a stroke, they have, or, brain injury, a very common thing to see, it's the synergy, right? So like the inversion with like that, knee extension, etc. So, the ankles are primarily going to turn in, okay? And I've seen this also like in people with like PLS or, any upper motor neuron condition where, they extend the knee and then they go into that like inversion. So, if there's that, or there's just too much ankle instability, like, I think that's the best because we cannot apply these type of orthosis if our patient has like flaccidity, okay? That, these are widely known for someone with tone. So they're also, they're gonna block a lot of that, again, that ankle joint movement. So they're gonna block dorsiflexion. So rising from a chair, ascending ramps, squatting, descending steps, it's going to be a little bit more difficult because they're going to restrict, because they're so rigid that they're going to restrict any tibia movement. So, you must consider the negative effects on function after you are evaluating, some orthosis. And so let's talk about the benefits and the cons of this specific AFO, okay? So the first thing is that it's going to limit, obviously, let's start with the benefits. That way we categorize benefits and we're going to kind of categorize the cons. So let's start with the benefits. So it's going to keep the ankle in neutral, right? It is very thick. These things right here, like you see, like this part, is called trim lines. Okay. These right here. The more anterior the trim line, the more ankle support. Okay. So you're going to see it here again. We have that ankle trim line right here. So some solid AFOs might have the trim line more forward if your patient has a lot of ankle instability or like inversion, typically. Or if they don't need that and their ankle stability is like improving, then they can obviously put the trim line more posterior. Okay, so more posterior trim lines to reduce that support. Okay, so that's one thing they need to know. These are the trim lines. This is called the trim line. Okay, so we talked about these limit ankle movement. These are going to keep the ankle in neutral. Okay, so meaning that, let's say if your patient has a lot of plantar flexion tone, so obviously the foot is going to be plantar flex. So this one is going to keep the ankle more in a neutral position. So it's going to help with dorsiflexion in swing. Okay, obviously. These ones, again, we talked about trim lines. So based on the patient's ankle stability or needing that ankle support, one of the benefits is that you can modify the trim lines. So you can adjust the trim lines, okay? The other benefit, so these I'm going to put like a little benefit, and then we talked about the cons. These are good if your patient has poor like static balance, okay? Or poor balance. So, if you look at the Rancho roadmap, these type of AFOs are under the category of a Berg balance score of less than 43. Now, I'm wondering because I couldn't find the roadmap when I would search it in Google. So that made me think like if they're still like using the roadmap, I don't know. But these are good to improve that static balance, right? So again, because they provide that ankle control. So that's what you need a lot when you're doing, you're practicing static balance. So we're going to put here, okay. These are for people who have high hypertonicity at the plantar flexors. Okay, so it's gonna help with that. And some of these have like a strap here, which is gonna obviously keep the ankle more in place. So that can help when they have a lot of tone. Okay, so let's talk about, now here's one thing that I need you to know and not forget. If you're gonna okay, I'm gonna give my patient this AFO, and this AFO is gonna help a lot with the tone, with the spasticity. I need you to understand that AFOs does not decrease the spasticity. Okay, it's not gonna increase the spasticity. It's not gonna decrease the spasticity. It's not gonna magically make it disappear. So if you are trying to give them an AFO so it can help with the spasticity, it's not gonna work. There is no evidence out there, and this is from the CPG of AFO and FES. So again, AFOs are not really contraindicated for someone who has spasticity, but there's no evidence that they can change the spasticity. Okay. Now let's talk about the cons of solid AFOs. So now let me do a red. That way we can really put some dramatic colors. Okay. So cons of the solid AFOs, we're going to put some like that. One is it doesn't allow a lot of ankle movement. Okay, so it's like a very thick material. Now, by the way, I learned this in residency. I guess I not brilliant, but I didn't know what polypropylene meant. Polypropylene, is that how you pronounce it? Polypropylene means plastic. It's a plastic. And, you know, they use also like the word thermoplastic, I guess, because they mold the plastic under heat. That's what I'm thinking. But if you're wondering, like, what the heck is polypropylene? It's just plastic. Okay. Okay. So it doesn't obviously allow a lot of ankle movement, meaning these do not contain an articulated ankle. Okay. So it doesn't have an articulated, like, you know, some of similar solid AFOs might have like an articulated ankle. You probably have seen this, but these ones do not have. And so the control that this orthos is going to provide to the patient is through the trim lines and obviously through the thick material. So it's very rigid, very, very rigid. Okay. Very rigid plastic. And it's going to be very heavy sometimes. Not as heavy as like the articulated like dorsiflexion assist and all that, but you know, it is bulky, is what I try to say. It's bulky. If you are trying to improve like pre-swing or that like dorsiflexion, not dorsiflexion, plantar flexion, like the propulsion, right? So if you want some ankle mobility, like you want to train your patient and assist with the ankle mobility, it's not going to be good for this. Okay, it's just not going to be good for. So we're going to put it. It's not going to allow. Not allow. Oh, I already put it. Not allow movement. Okay. And the other one, well, I'm going to here doesn't allow dorsiflexion. Okay. Because remember, dorsiflexion is going to bring, let's say this is the leg. Okay. Dorsiflexion means like that. It's not. Because this thing is going to be so thick. Oh God. It's going to be so thick that it's just going to hold the ankle back. Okay. So like doesn't allow dorsiflexion for, again, when they're trying to rise from a chair, ascending ramps, squatting, descending steps. It's not going to allow dorsiflexion too much. Okay. So those are the major things about solid AFO. But the things that you need to consider is that this one is a very rigid, doesn't allow a lot of ankle movement, doesn't allow a lot of dorsiflexion. So just consider those things. Maybe this is for someone who has a lot of plantar flexion spasticity. So that's for our first video on our AFO series. I hope that this was helpful. So I'm going to leave you here some videos that you can click and explore and learn more about AFOs, and I'll see you on the next one.